All right, welcome to the second episode of Daddy Warpig's Kick-Ass Streamcast. I am your host, Daddy Warpig. I blog at daddywarpig.wordpress.com. That is Daddy Warpig's House of Geekery. I don't know if you've heard my name enough, but I'm going to do it one more time. You can email me at daddy.warpig@yahoo.com. daddy.warpig@yahoo.com. I had some questions earlier in the day. Some people were wondering, hey, do you take questions from the comment stream or whatever? My response to that is it is usually too chaotic during the show to take direct questions most of the time. However, if you have the presence of mind to email me, I will be more than happy much of the time to answer your questions on the air. So once again, send me an email. The email address I said twice before, I'll say it once more. daddy.warpig@yahoo.com. Send me some questions, and if I can get to them on the air, I absolutely will. I had one quick request from yesterday's show by Ray Howling Coyote over on Twitter. He wanted me to say the following, so this one goes out to Ray. Gamers, I think we've got a mystery. There you go, Ray. I don't know if you're going to use that for your answering machine or what, but your request I am more than grateful to answer. I want to welcome everybody who is listening. I really, really, really hope this is going out because from the comments, it looks like people aren't hearing me. If you're not getting this, let me know, guys. That would be really, really, really good. I have tried so hard to get everything set up and get it running that to have things crash on me is painful. I've been sitting here for the last 15 minutes, fiddling with mics, fiddling with headsets. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Google, come on, don't let me down. And then everything crashes for no reason. That would be terribly, terribly, terribly embarrassing, especially since I have no access to things to fix it. I want to say thank you, by the way, to everyone who retweeted announcements for this. That was above and beyond the Call of Duty. I much appreciate it. I want people to be able to listen to the show, not just because I'm awesome and not just because it flatters my narcissism, but because I have things to say that I think are actually of value. If you pull up yesterday's show where I covered all sorts of stuff about the thoughts behind Gamergate, about the motives behind Gamergate, about what we are trying to do. It is great information. I think it's information that Gamergaters themselves can use, and I definitely think it's information that if we can pass it along to good-hearted people, that they will understand. They will absolutely understand that we are not a crowd of ruffians. We are not a crowd of thugs. We are not a crowd of misogynists who are trying to drive women off. I had this thought yesterday while I was preparing for the show, and I didn't say it because frankly, I didn't know how many people it was going to piss off, but I'm going to say it now. This is the narrative, as they call it, that they have been spreading, and it doesn't make any sense to me. See if you can follow my logic here. See if you can follow why the narrative is confusing. Not just because if you read Gamergate for a day, you would know for a fact that we are not who they say we are. You would know if you just bothered to read the feeds I see every day. You would know that Gamergate is not who we say we are. But in addition, the internal logic, if we just accepted their story at face value, the internal logic makes no sense. Because here's the internal logic. Gamergate is all about male virgins, pasty-faced, overweight, neck beard male virgins stuck in their basement playing video games who are so gross and disgusting that no woman would ever possibly want to touch them. So these group of male virgins that women sneer at hear from publications that all of a sudden there are thousands, nay, tens of thousands of females who have joined their hobby, who play the same games they play, who love the same games that they love, who they can sit down and have actual conversations with across the internet, or even gasp, shock, in person. And the automatic reaction of these pathetic creatures upon hearing there are women suddenly who they can share things in common with is, as a group, all of them, 100%, to say, get out of my hobby. We don't want you here. We don't want to talk to you. We're virgins. Why would we want to talk to women? Roar! It makes no sense. Just the internal logic of this position makes no sense. And the sad thing is, you shouldn't have to hear me say that on this streamcast, because we have thousands of people in hashtag not your shield who go out and show the world that those who support Gamergate are not just white males. And they accuse all of us in Gamergate of setting up sock puppet accounts, despite all of the pictures and comments and everything that is posted by members of Not Your Shield. The founder of Not Your Shield, the person who created the hashtag, who got people interested and got them moving on this, is or was a literal, actual Black Panther. I follow him. He's part of my Gamergaters feed. When I started to follow Gamergate more intensely, I asked for suggestions as to who I should add so I could be plugged into the community. His name came up. I added him over a month ago. I've been reading his tweets daily. And the thought that all of these people who hate Gamergate would look at a black man who was in the Black Panther Party and say, you don't exist, you're not worth listening to, your opinion doesn't matter, you're nothing. We're going to talk for you. We're going to override you because we know better than you. And the people doing this are white, prosperous white people. And they do that to everybody in Not Your Shield. My point being that their story makes no sense, even if you accept the basic premise, and that there is copious evidence that the basic premise is wrong. So I have no solutions. If I was a proper demagogue, if I was a fully prepared leader, I would come to you with some kind of solution and say, yes, but I know how to fix the problem. What we need is a letter writing campaign. What we need is another hashtag so that we can publicize this other hashtag that's helping the Gamergate hashtag. Yes, genius. Not going to happen. You can lead a person to knowledge, but you cannot make them think. In point of fact, you can't even make them listen. If all they have is a set of prejudices and bitterness and anger, you can't force them to listen to you. All you can do is tell the truth and let the truth fall where it may. Let the chips fall where they may. Which is, generally speaking, what we've tried to do. That's my rant out of the way from the beginning. I want to say this before we get too far into this show. I was live tweeting the Apple event yesterday. This is a rough and abrupt change of subject. You're going to have to get used to that if you listen to these shows. There's some things I want to talk about, and we just have to move quickly because I'm only doing these for half an hour each, so that anyone who listens can get in, listen to the show, and get out. They don't have to dedicate 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever to hearing my opinions. You can hear what I need to say in 30 minutes and go. So we're moving to the next subject. The next subject being this. I was live tweeting the Apple event yesterday where they announced a bunch of new stuff. But before I did, I said this, and this is true, by the way. And I'm going to say it again. I'm not just a Gamergate geek. I am a general purpose geek. I like talking about video games and comics and movies and TV shows and novels and all of that. Because that's what I love. That's what I do. In fact, right before the show started, literally up until the last minute when I hit the broadcast button, I was reading John Ringo's latest novel. And there's a reason why I didn't say it was his newest novel, because it isn't out yet. It won't be released until January, but Baen Books, who is the most awesome publisher on the planet, Baen Books released his new novel in what they call, and they do this all the time, in what they call an EARC, and that is an advanced reader copy. It is the book that hasn't been proofread yet. It hasn't been sent to the editors yet, so it's got a bunch of typos and things like that, small stuff all the way through it. But if you're jonesing to read the next novel in the series, and this is the 4th novel in the series, this is, at least so far, the last novel in the series. If you really, really need to read it, it's available for about twice the price of a normal book. By the way, the EARC is available for purchase. I'm not getting any money from Baen for saying that. I do this for free. It's called Strands of Sorrow. It's the latest book in his Islands of Hope and Rage series, and it's about hunting zombies. So up until the final moments before I actually clicked go on the broadcast, I was reading about people shooting up zombies, and it was awesome. So that's what I am. I am a general purpose geek. If you've read my blog, and it's a great blog, you ought to stop by. I think you find it entertaining. If you want to read my blog, you'll see that I change subjects pretty much every day unless something unusual is going on. And so the rest of the time on this show, most of you came to this because you heard about this through Gamergate hashtag or for someone who publicized the hashtag. For the rest of this show, I want to talk about something else besides Gamergate. That's my rant about Not Your Shield. I covered what I needed to cover today. We got about 15 minutes left. That's how fast the show moves. We've done half our time already. We got about 15 minutes left, and I want to start with talking about Apple. Apple does something interesting. Something else you're going to have to get used to if you want to listen. I like Apple products. I own Apple products. I have for 20 years. And so if you hate Apple with a burning, roiling passion, you're just going to have to stomach that. I want to talk about Apple specifically in connection with what I think Sony and Microsoft are doing wrong with their consoles, because I think they're screwing the pooch on the consoles, and I think Apple is doing something really, really interesting. And if they adopted an Apple-esque plan in one specific instance, they could see consoles becoming something that reaches a wider audience. What Apple did with the iPad, what they did with the iPhone is they released their first version, and then a year later they released an upgraded version with a new OS and upgraded hardware. They added new hardware features, new software features. They made it bigger, badder, and better. And more importantly, on this new and upgraded version, you could run all the apps that you used to be able to on the old version. And then the third year came along, and they introduced the iPhone 3GS, which had new options. It had new hardware, new software, new features, could still run your old apps. And the fourth year came along. They introduced the iPhone 4, etc., etc., etc. If you see what I'm saying in regards to consoles, think about this. That instead of waiting 5 years or 6 years or 7 years and having all of a sudden a big jump to a new console that is not backwards compatible, that will not play your old games, that has a completely different, and in the case of the Xbox One, completely shittier interface, you have to think that that is a business model made for how consoles used to be back when they were a single block of integrated circuits. Right now, consoles are essentially PCs. They have got graphics chips, they have got CPUs, they have got hard drives, all the way a normal PC does, dedicated hardware, lockdown hardware, but much like PCs, if Microsoft and Sony moved to an annual release schedule, they could have completely upgraded boxes that were a little faster, maybe a little bit more RAM, maybe a little bit larger storage space, with a new interface, a new OS running that would still run your old games. And you would build up among your audience, among your customers, devotion to these consoles, and every year they would be asking themselves, is this a year I want to upgrade to the new Xbox? Is this a year I want to upgrade to the new PlayStation? I think if you look at what they did with backwards compatibility, which frankly still just gets me so angry, and because Sony did it, you know Microsoft's going to do it, where backwards compatibility is complete bullshit, where backwards compatibility is streaming. You stream a game across the internet, paying an insane amount of money per hour, and you're basically renting these games from their servers. So if you don't want to pay all that money, you're screwed. If you're in a place with less than optimal internet, you're screwed. By the way, full disclosure, I live in a place with less than optimal internet. And so if I want to play my stack, and I have a stack of Xbox 360 games on my Xbox One, despite the fact that it has 3 or 4 times the hardware necessary to run them, I can't. And they can say all they want about technological limitations. I don't buy it. I don't believe them. If they moved to an every year or every 2-year release schedule, they could sell more consoles, they could sell more games, and they would have a long tail. That's the name of this theory, that if you get people buying things that normally exist in small numbers, you can still make a lot of money. You've put in effort, you've put in an investment into making all of this software, and the investment in that software would continue to be viable because people could buy it without having to worry about what they need to run it on. I think that backwards compatibility, not only was it implemented for the Xbox 360, it turned out to be a prime source of profits for the Xbox 360, because all of the effort they put into making their backwards compatible Xbox games became the core of making their being able to sell Xbox 360 games downloadable. All that research put into it paid off in terms of money. I think customers would buy more software. I think customers would buy more consoles. And if you continually upgrade the OS, if you continually upgrade the hardware, they will see, hey, there's brand new hardware out there. Do I want to upgrade this time, or do I want to put it off till next time? They're selling, Apple is selling iPads for a lot more, or for approximately the same price, a lot more than the 360, approximately the same price as the Xbox One. It would have been, I think, a wise decision. And it's a decision that I, as a customer, would appreciate, because I have an investment in all of my games. And I would like to be able to play them on my Xbox One. All right. I want to talk about a couple of things Apple did yesterday real quick, because I think they were interesting strategically. They introduced a new display, a new Retina display on their iMac. They call it a 5K display. It's 5,012 pixels along one dimension. It's larger. I think the quote they gave was 67% more pixels than on a 4K display. They are, and the picture they showed, the video they showed when they debuted it in their Apple event, was of a movie editing station software editing 4K video. Apple is going to position its new iMac as 4K editing workstations, because you have enough space for your video, and then you have 67% more that you can stick all the Chrome for a timeline, for all of your sound adjustments, for a source list for all of the clips you can drag and drop into your timeline. They are really aiming this at a high-end market with a moderately priced product, and I think it's a really good idea to try and expand their user base. We have just about 10 minutes left. I think this is a really exciting time to be in technology. I think this is a really exciting time to be a geek. And it breaks my heart that we have this huge war that happened, and that it was necessary. We had journalists, by the way, I should say, Brian Crescente, who founded several of the large gaming journalism sites, reached out to people in the Gamergate hashtag earlier today and asked them for their point of view on ethics in games journalism. And I stopped by his discussion, and he's engaging in comments with people who have different points of view. And in my opinion, watching him, he's doing it sincerely, with an eye towards actually trying to understand the objections of Gamergate, what made the people involved in this consumer revolt upset. He's trying to engage with us with an eye towards actually doing something about this problem, because the situation cannot continue indefinitely. And this is my opinion, not him. I'm not presenting these as his reasoning or thoughts. There is no win condition. There is no victory condition for the journalists. If we give up and go away, they lose because we're not reading their sites anymore. And if they go out of business, they lose because they don't have their sites anymore. I've been saying this several times, again and again. I've said it on Twitter. I've said it on a post on my blog. It got excerpted by a journalist. We've been repeating this in different venues, and they're just not listening. Until today, I think Brian Crescente actually started listening to what we have to say. I think he actually started to be open to hearing opinions that differed from what he'd been told. And so I will try to find that link and put it in the notes to this episode. Because even if I had it, it was too long and complicated to say on the air. Oliver Campbell, I believe, tweeted it. If we can, he is a prominent figure among games journalists. He's a respected figure among games journalists. He has credibility. And it's not that he's taking sides in this, because I don't think he is. But he at least can take valid concerns and valid objections and present them to people who would not otherwise be inclined to listen to us. And so, if you're interested in moving past this war, moving past this civil war, he's a possible path forward. I want to get back to playing games because I love games. I want to get to being able to get on Twitter and just have fun. I can't do that right now because of all the angry, bitter, vengeful attacks launched by the literally who's and launched by games journalists, their smear pieces that they collude to put in the media with certain journalists. It's ugly and it's nasty, and I am doing it because I think it's necessary for the health of the hobby, but I don't want to have to do it at some point. I want to be able to look forward to see a future where we can get back to arguing about Xbox versus PlayStation versus PC versus Mac. I want to get back to when games were fun again. And I think that, and I'm not saying Brian Crescente will descend from heaven and solve all of our problems. I think that he is at least doing something right, doing enough right, that it will help us in the long run to make a life after the war. My name is Daddy Warpig. We are out of time for today. I want to thank everyone who listened in. I want to thank everyone who commented in the chat box. Remember, if you want to send an email to me, to ask me questions to address on the air, it's daddy.warpig at yahoo.com. You can check me out on Twitter at daddy_warpig, at daddy_warpig, or you can check out the blog, Daddy Warpig's House of Geekery, hardcore geekery for the hardcore geek and everybody else. My name's Daddy Warpig. I will be back.